Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. Being a baseball fanatic like me can be stressful. It's not all sports points and touchdowns. So Progressive is going to help you take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they missed that goal point score, think about the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, letting you choose coverage options based on your budget, unlike your team that missed the end zone net area. Well, anyway, hope this distraction about Progressive's Name Your Price tool was helpful. It sure kept me from thinking about all those penalty balls. Yay, sports!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Gas mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna cook a meal that's gonna make you mine. I'm turning up the oven, now we're ready to roast. When you touch me, honey, you'll love it the most. Come on and put me in your loving shoe.
Welcome to another Britflicks.com podcast. My name's Stuart Wright, and today's guest is writer-director of A Violent Man, Ross McCall. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Now, before we get into details about the film, do you want to give the audience a brief synopsis to what A Violent Man is all about?
It's a very easygoing romantic comedy about a prisoner called Steve Mackelson. I'll be serious now. It's a gritty, realistic, I feel, internal look at the prison system, especially in the UK, but really it's world renowned. And it follows one man's internal struggle with who he is and what being incarcerated has done to his life and the acceptance that goes along with that. On his journey, he's slightly put off balance because he's now got a new cellmate for the first time in a long time. And it's a young gang member from the same estates that he grew up in. And it's how he sort of navigates having this new partnership, if you will. You know, I wanted to stay away from the father-son relationship that we've all seen. It's not about that. It's not teacher-pupil. It's just about two men from similar backgrounds with a vast age difference, and one who is extremely experienced in the world of prison, and one kid that's literally getting a taste of it for the first time. And it's watching their journeys collide. Yeah,
I mean, it's as you joked about what it is at the start, because in a way, what I expected and what I saw were two very different things. I mean, it's obviously, with the title like that, it does have its moments of brutality. But really, I thought it was a really tender film with an existential portrayal of what it might be like to be in prison.
I'm so glad that you picked up on that. Yeah, I mean, look, the type of films that I tend to write and now direct, but also ones that I've produced and had a hand in, tonally, they're all pretty similar. And yes, there is a romanticism there. You know, I'm not talking about, a love story. It's not, but it's certainly a reading on an internal struggle of a man who's committed some horrendous crimes. Yes, the title was there. It's a little bit of clickbait. I understand some people might be jumping on this going, oh my God, this film, it's about a bunch of geezers in prison smacking 10 tons of shit out of each other. It's not. It's, it's a more meaningful film. Hence the reason we cast it the way we cast it. Craig is our lead, and I've surrounded him with top-notch independent and studio filmmaking actors. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to stay far away from, another East End, or Wandsworth, prison setting where everybody's shanking each other in the showers. We've all seen it, and I didn't want to explore that. What I wanted to explore is what it actually does to a person, no matter what crime they've committed. Is there empathy with that person? And you really feel for this very dark, tortured soul. And I think you come away from it. You've obviously seen the whole film. You come away from it in a weird way, understanding him and perhaps feeling compassion towards him, which is a really hard thing to do when you see how he gets by inside that prison.
Well, it's the fact that he understands who he is and knows he can be different, but when push comes to shove, he is what he is. And that must drive you insane, as clearly it does.
100%. And, but I mean, he's not in any form of denial about who he is. And I think that acceptance has served him well. And he's also very, he's got no grand disillusions that he's going to get out and be a free man one day. He knows where he's at. And he says it, you know, in a moment in the film where he understands that people outside of this world don't understand it. And he's okay with that too. But he's like, you just have to be okay with, I know who I am. I have ire in my blood. That's who I am. I'm not shying away from it. And I will leave my legacy here. And I'm okay with that.
Now, look, you wrote and directed this. So as a writer myself, I'd love to know what was the catalyst for you that was the start of the idea that became this movie we now see today? Where does that journey start for you as a writer? Well,
it's sort of twofold, really. I've been in a couple of, I've acted in a couple of prison films that, as much fun as I had on them, I felt weren't really depicting the reality that I was seeing when I was researching. So that was first and foremost in the start of my brain. I was like, could I do a film that makes an audience feel what it must feel like to be in a prison? Now that's a dangerous line to keep your feet on, because the truth is, as an audience member, I don't want to be sat in a cinema feeling that I'm in prison. But in truth, that's sort of what we're doing. And it's interesting because it gives you anxiety, but it also makes you come out of this with no gloss, and you go, that is a place I would not want to be in. And I feel that a lot of prison films I'd watched previously glamorized it in some way, Hollywoodized it in others. And I'm a huge fan of those films. I'm not knocking them. I'm a big fan of Bronson. I'm a big fan of Startup. I'm a big fan of, Papillon and Cool Hand Luke and all the old ones. But none of them were showing the gritty reality that I'd seen. And the reason I'd seen them was I was writing a TV spec script many years back, and it was all set within privatized prisons in America. So I ended up going to some American prisons, one in particular, which is Angola State Prison, which is just the most infamous, bloodiest prison still in America.
Gets mentioned a lot on Justified.
Yeah, of course. And it's still dated. There's still horse guards on horseback with the mirrored shades and the convicts out, skimming the wheat and digging the ditches. And it's a really strange place where these youngsters are just thrown into a system that perhaps is monetized in a way through the privatization of prisons. There's money to be made, and that just sort of fascinated me, that world, and I wasn't seeing that on film. So that was one reason for me to go, could I write a prison drama that I believe shows the inner workings of somebody who's locked up in a cell for life? And then on the polar opposite of that, the film that I'd written just before that I starred and produced in, it was directed by Stefan Schwartz, was called About Us. And that, again, tonally is actually very similar to A Violent Man, but it's quintessentially about broken love. It's about, self-love, and it's heartbreaking. And so with A Violent Man, I was like, could I do something completely opposite in the sense of one's about love? I'll do one about hate and self-hate. And could I have these two back to back that are just completely different from one another, but you can tell that there's a flavor. And honestly, that was it. I cranked it out relatively quickly. But I've been researching for years. I've been a big documentary fan, and I've watched pretty much every prison documentary you can think of. And then I saw a brilliant Danish film called R. It's the letter R. Okay. That a dear friend of mine, Charlie Hunnam, an actor, he told me about it when I was telling him that I was putting this prison film together. He's like, you should see this Danish film. And I watched it and I was like, that's the closest that I've seen that depicts the world that I want to show. So with that in my back pocket, I just sort of went, okay, I'm going to go make this happen and, get it down and get it sorted to the place where I thought it was going to be interesting to watch as a viewer.
You're right, because it's not like any portrayal I've seen of a prison film. All the words I wrote down while I was watching it was intimate and claustrophobic. Because essentially, there is the usual trope in a prison film is obviously we leave the cell and we get to see the prison, the wider population, the wing, as it were. But what you've done is you've held us tight in this cell. I mean, obviously we move through time and space still, but we don't really leave the cell. In fact, I don't think we do. people come into the cell. People come in, don't they? And they talk to the characters, but we don't leave it. And that as that, it wasn't till halfway through that I realised why I was so tense, because I hadn't been able to leave the room. People had come in, but I hadn't. From the point of view the film's coming from, you weren't allowed to leave. So on the page, what was the story challenges there about not having the freedom to just walk around a prison?
Well, I feel that's part of my situation is I tend to write. I write myself into a corner to see if I can get out of it. So with About Us, my journey was, could I make a feature film with basically 2 lead roles, just 2 characters? And I eventually brought in a 3rd character. So that changed slightly, but I was like, could I make a film where there's only three people? And we did. And so with A Violent Man, it wasn't anything to do with budgetary reasons or whatnot. And listen, I'm not the first to do a film in a room or...
No, but I think being a prison movie and what our expectations of one, I think it was a bold move, just to, because being in a prison itself is a single location. There's not a lot of places you can go, but.
Well, my whole MO to that was, I wanted people to feel like what it would be like to be in prison. And so when I was writing it, the timeline was the interesting thing. I had to give myself, okay, I have to stretch this over, let's say 12 months, because, I can't just do it 24 hours in a cell, because that's going to get really monotonous just as a story point. But the plot it's funny. We've had some beautiful reviews, like really stunning reviews for this film. And we've had actually only 1, maybe 2 that were a bit, on the fence. And one of their problems was it was like, well, there's no plot. And I was like, that's crazy to me. You're not seeing it, because there's an absolute through story here. And it takes place over 12 months. And what that did was it allowed me to literally fade down. And
to be honest with you, I don't know how you can get to the end of that film and not feel like you've watched the story. I don't understand.
Listen, everybody's got taste, and and I take the good, and I take good with the bad. You know what I mean? It's like I listen to the good and I listen to the bad, but I don't take it on board. And for me, I was like, it was actually I could take liberties by setting it in one cell, because I could literally get to the end of a scene and bring something up 2 weeks later. So it actually gave me a lot more freedom.
It gives you a bit of a dreamlike state, which is what cinema's meant to do anyway. You're not meant to be in real time all the time. Cinema has that magic of leaping, and if you trust the audience, they'll catch up with you if they don't know immediately. And you establish a rhythm, don't you, in the film almost, with the different people you
Absolutely.
bring in, and each one has their own tone. So when the woman's in, you definitely get a different atmosphere than when Jason Flemyng bobs in for something or whatever.
Absolutely. There's different tones that each character brings in. And also, look, I mean, it is one of those films where you do have to listen and you have to concentrate. You'll get lost. It's a slightly slow burn, but it's done on purpose just to show you the monotony, just to show you one of my favorite parts of the film is, that first 10 minutes, nobody speaks. I mean, there's voiceover, the warden speaks, but, or the governor, I should say. It's very American to say warden. Like our 2 principal roles, our 2 principal characters hardly say a word to one another, because to me that was reality. It was like, you have to earn, it's not even friendship, you have to earn companionship in these places, because nobody wants to befriend. Nobody, they're not saying, oh, welcome mate, welcome to the room, let me show you around. It's just, there's such a turnover of bodies coming through this place that you've got to earn a conversation. And so for me to watch the young kid, the Marcus role, his first night in prison, that was like something I hadn't seen before. I was like, could you imagine just being, a young 19-year-old lad, and it's your first night in the Nick? I mean, how do you feel when that door slams, when the light goes off? And you're in a room with a man who's old, as old as your father, probably older, a dangerous man. How does that make one feel? And that fascinating. So it takes its time to get in, as you know. But once the train's moving, I believe you're in for the ride, and you start to learn a little more about who you're watching. But you also start to, even my character, when I pop up, there's something different to it, and once you get the realization of what that is and what his relationship is with Keats, with the social worker, just how she's the only person where he can be sort of vulnerable in the end and talk about being in fear. Because to me, that's real. Even if a guy's murdered, 3 people and is a violent man, he still has fears. And I was like, well, what would those fears be? You know, and that was just interesting for me to put on
and
paper and then see it come alive with the guys was incredible.
I mean, Craig Fairbrass has been on the podcast when Villain come out. He gave me his 5 favourite criminal films we did with him. And I've had Jared Johnson on talking about Muscle. And now with A Violent Man. I feel like Craig's been picking some really meaty roles of late, you know?
Here's the thing with Craig. Craig's a very, very good actor. And I think, and we've all been guilty of this as actors, you know, sometimes we take jobs that, you know, perhaps on hindsight we go, sort of putting you in a corner. But the truth is, he never put in a bad performance in anything. So for me, once I saw Villain, once I saw Muscle, I was like, oh, this guy is perfect. If you'll do it, this is great. And he trusted the hell out of me, which was just, you know, it's hard for an actor to trust another actor directing you. Because, you know, there is a little bit of, and I've done it, you know, the guy who plays the governor, Ulrich Thompson, is a dear friend of mine, but wonderful actor. But he directed me in his directorial debut. And I remember at first being really sort of like, I don't know if this is for me. The way, you know, as an actor directing an actor, and then it turned out to be one of my greatest experiences. So I don't know if that's true or not for Craig, but I believe that we got such a great chemistry going, and he knew what I wanted. And there were moments, you know, we would go up against each other, and you know, we would question it. But I have to take my hat off. I mean, he trusted me to steer it, and you know, I wasn't going to let it not be steered the way I wanted to steer it. And the great thing for me, and I've said this publicly to everybody, no matter what happens now with the film, I'm so grateful, and I'm so honored, and I'm so proud. I made the film I wanted to make. You know, I didn't have to cut corners. I didn't have to change it. I didn't have to do anything different to what I wanted. So I can only walk away with, you know, feeling good about it.
No, I'm sure you do. You should be very proud of it. Where did you? I mean, Craig is someone we know, but Stephen, his cellmate, is not someone we know as much. So, what was the casting for that role, and how did you find Stephen?
Stephen had done a film called Blue Story that was a big hit in the UK. You know, it got a little controversy with some gang violence breaking out outside of one of the cinemas, and they tried to shut down the film. And then the public spoke up and said, "Hey, no, this is a story we want to hear." And it got like a second lease of life. And then Suzanne Smith and Sarah Trevis, 2 dear friends of mine, 2 casting directors. I've known Suzanne for years. I did a show called Band of Brothers, but I was cast out of America. And Suzanne cast a lot of the Brits. And so I eventually met her after I'd shot the show. We've been friends for so long. And so I went to them as a favor. You know, I said, will you come and do this, you know, small, gritty, dark, brutal, violent film? And, you know, she was...
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fits your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule. With great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.
This message is brought to you by Regeneron. If you have diabetes, listen closely because your ears could help your eyes. Excess sugar from diabetes could lead to eye damage and vision loss, even blindness, and you might not even notice it at first. So remember, now is the time to get your eyes checked. Eye care is especially important with diabetes. See a path forward with actions and potential treatment options that may help your eyes and protect against vision loss. Go see an eye care specialist and visit noweyesee.com to take charge of your eyesight. That is NOWEYESEE.com.
Slightly hesitant to begin with, but then she saw About Us, which was my other film, and she saw what we were doing and what sort of content we were trying to produce. And she said, absolutely. And I'll forever be in their debt. And so Stevie came through the casting, he did a self-tape for us. It was in the height of COVID. There was only about 5 guys that we brought in, to do face to face with plexiglass in front of us. It was a ridiculous setup, but it's the way of the world.
Yeah, the world has changed a bit.
No, of course. And I worked with him. I wanted to see him stretch a little more, and he did, and he took direction really well. And I can't say enough nice things about him as a kid, just as a guy. I keep telling everyone too, I want to meet his mum one day because she's raised hell of a kid. He's such a good soul. And I needed that. I needed that sentimental side in somebody that was going to come and, I was going to brutalize the boy.
Yeah.
He's getting his head ducked down toilets and he's, getting, slapped around. And it was a tough deal for him. But with him and Craig together, Craig's been around a long time. Stevie's new. And to watch Craig kind of take him under his wing as well. It was actually kind of funny for me because, I'm primarily an actor. And so I'm used to being on set and being number one, number two on the call sheet and, having my fun with the crew and I noticed when you're the director, you're the captain of the ship. So it's almost like you're the head teacher. So like all the school kids, the actors are all sort of off doing their little thing.
You're the boss, aren't you?
Yeah. And you're not included. And I'm like, hold on, guys. I'm one of the guys, Yeah. So it was lovely to watch Craig and him actually really.
And how, as the director though, Ross, how do you differentiate because obviously they're in the same scenes a good few times. So when you're directing them both in the same scene, how do you vary that kind of the conversation between the two of them? Because obviously, like you say, worlds of experience between them, but they're in the same scene at that point, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but you also, you have to learn who you're dealing with. I mean, the good news was we sat down for a good couple of weeks beforehand, the three of us, and we were reading through it a lot together. And so I was starting to figure out, how far each of them I could push or they needed to be pushed. And so, Craig and I had many conversations beforehand. We were pretty much on the same page. There were certain things, that I was really pushed for, and God bless him. He would trust me and he would do it. And Stevie, I would just whisper something different to him in the middle of a scene. And I was doing stuff that when directors do it to me, it drives me nuts, and I was doing it to them, which was interesting because now it sort of made me look at it very differently. Like when I'm in the middle of a scene, if a director yells stuff out in the middle of that scene, it used to drive me nuts. And, I'd get annoyed. I'd be like, just tell me before the fucking action and then I'll just do it, And now I understand why they would do it, because you can get something. You can get something really, really almost like if you antagonize the actor a little bit. Get something from them because, it's stressful. It's anxiety. They're trying to remember lines. They're trying to be in that moment. And all of a sudden you've got me yelling over the wall, do that again, and just look in his other eye. What? And so it's like, and everybody really sort of warmed up to that very quickly.
Did you almost have to stop yourself at first when you realised what you were doing? Like the idea that this is what annoys me, but you're going, no, I need to do this.
Yes and no. I mean, there was a part of me going, no, I think this warrants it. I think this warrants it. And I think, because I wouldn't be doing it because the camera bumped. I wouldn't do it out of technical reasons.
Yeah.
I would definitely do it like, just give me that line again and throw this one in. Instead of me just doing a whole new take, because they're already in it. And as frustrating as that is, I could tell that they're still in that zone. So I'm like, throw that line out. And this time, say it like you're saying it to your auntie, or whatever it was, what I mean? All my direction was that bad. and it was pleasurable to do it that way because, we just got magic.
Well, look, we've talked about the writing of something that's set in one cell, but the shooting of something that's set in one cell is where the sort of the alchemy really comes to life in terms of what's enjoyable about your film. I think every choices you seem to have made with you and your cinematographer is about what you want us to look at. I haven't got a clue what that cell looks like, even though it's an 8x10 cell, and I've watched the feature film set there, because what you chose to do, in a way, to me, felt like it had a lot more in common with a with a kind of classic noir film, in a sense. It was all about the slats of light coming through on people's faces. It wasn't about, oh, look, this is what a cell looks like. Now you know what one looks like. I mean, that wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes as a film. But the fact that you kept bringing us in on the points of view you wanted us to have, I just wonder, what was the conversations like with you and Stefan? And is it Klupek, do I pronounce the surname?
Yeah, it's Stefan Klupek. Yeah, we've shot 2 films before, me as an actor and him as a DP. And so he's a dear friend of mine. And one of my stipulations going into this film is, look, if we're going to do this, then I have to cast it and I have to crew up. So my AD was vitally important. Melissa came in and just, stunned us all and made sure that ship was sailing smoothly when it needed to.
An important role.
And it's hugely important. And Stefan, again, we're dear friends. He's known me always as an actor. He knows what side I like to be shot on, But I did say to him, if we're going to do this, we have to do this dance together and we have to do a lot of prep. And he was 100% behind that. So we prepped for weeks beforehand. We had our shot list. I mean, that will never be 100% bulletproof, but we definitely knew going in what we had to accomplish. And, most other crew members and whatnot were skeptical whether we would get these shots done. And we just said, we'll get them done. We know what we're doing. We didn't repeat a shot in the entire movie.
No, it was amazing. I definitely felt that.
Yeah, even when there's scenes, Keats and Steve, all their scenes are sat at the table, the same fucking table, the same positions. But every single shot we made and every single scene was completely different. We had just like the wonderful, our gaffer Noah, had just done Star Wars, so we had like the best of the best. That I would say, Noah, I want to feel like it's cold outside. On it. Next thing I know, the lighting that's coming through. I'm a flair whore in the sense of I really like cinema. I really like film. And my whole thing about this was we can go off and make a documentary type style film. I've seen it. I've done it. I want this to look beautiful. I want it to look, just, dark and edgy, but also what you're saying, we wanted lights to come through a certain way. What was great was I could say, I want to do a close up of an eyeball. But there was a reason behind it. It's not me being, facetious in any way. And Steph would go, great. And then Steph would go, what do you think? Should I just do this? And I'm like, absolutely, let's go. So both of us were just like so open to being, without spoiling a lot, but, the opening Keats scene, I stay on the side of Steve's face in focus that entire time. She's out of focus for, 3 minutes of dialogue. And those are things that normally studios and producers will get in on you and say, no, we need coverage, we need this. And I said, that's not this film. Like, I want long shots. I want one shots. I want, the Marcus tearing down the cell shot. It's all one shot.
Well, I must admit, it's like, when you're watching a film and you're making decisions very quickly as an audience member. And when you start with that inverted shot of which you're not quite sure what it is, and then you realize it's somebody getting a shiv in, which is just don't think that's a big spoiler because it's the opening moments of the film.
Sure.
You kind of, I just relaxed and went, oh, I'm in safe hands here now. It's because if you're making that kind of decision already, it's like, well, what I've got a lot to look forward to, kind of thing.
Right. And listen, that came out when I was cutting the film. I knew I wanted to shoot it from the ground and be static, and I wanted this complete, very slow fade up that you don't know where you are, you're discombobulated, you've no idea what's going on, and then this brutal act of violence happens before us with no cut. And it was when I was in the edit and I flip it. And I remember my editor, Alex, admit this, he thought I was a madman. He's like, we can't flip. I was like, flip it, flip the image. I want to start it. And to me, you're right. It brings us into this world. It's upside down. We're discombobulated. We're anxious. We don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Even in the moments of calm, we're like, it's almost like a play in essence. But my dream even as an actor, is to be able to perform. And so I wanted the actors to really feel safe in that environment where I was like, listen, act your socks off, because I'm going to stay tight on your, the side of your face, or poor Steve Magnuson, I'm talking about, poor Craig, I think by day 3, he was like, if I have to do one more shot in the mirror, and I'm like, trust me, I said, it looks stunning. You're only going to be half the screen. It's going to be you in the mirror with, the little edges around the mirror. So it's going to be 2 of you, and the rest of it's going to be black, and I think he thought I was a madman too. But to me, I wanted it to be artistically beautiful in such a gruesome world. It's a gruesome world.
No, but like I say, that was it. It was what I felt comfortable with the minute it started to roll. I was like, yeah, this is making decisions. It's a bit like when I was watching Gerard's film Muscle, the same thing. You kind of knew almost immediately that there was invention and wanting you to enjoy, because cinema's about enjoying the aesthetic. I think TV can often be about the chitter chatter and making sure you're following the story and that. But while there is a narrative to follow, cinema can be allowed to wash over you and be an experience as much as it is an involving thing. You can be distant as well.
I agree. There's nothing. I shouldn't say it's not the worst for me, because I'm a film fan. I love cinema. I feel that A Violent Man is more of a film rather than a movie. Movies tend to be a little more commercial, a little more butter popcorn. And film, I feel I don't have to do a wide, a single shot, a 2 shot, and over the shoulder. Because to me, I'll get tired of that. That's what I act in TV, and not that there's anything wrong with that. What you're saying is yes, the narrative on TV is different. You need to, over-explain things. And I think, look, I'm probably guilty of overwriting. I know that. I still even cut down in the edit. I
was going to say, so in the edit then, Ross, what was... Because obviously you write it, you shoot it, and like even said there, you flip an image and it's like, that feels better. You didn't put that on the page, but you knew when you were looking at it. So what other elements of the way that you'd imagine the story began to change in the edit? Was there anything that you completely reordered or anything like that with what we see in the final film?
Yeah, sort of. A couple of things. In the original script, the meeting with the daughter wasn't there, and I put that in very late.
Wow! Okay.
Which I'm so happy for, because it's an absolute pinnacle stellar scene, and little Rosie, who plays Steve's daughter, just is absolute phenomenal.
And it's at the heart of what we want from the film as well.
100%. But at the time of the original writing, I was like, nah, we don't deserve to see it. He pulls out. He doesn't do it. And I started leaning more and more towards the notion that we had to meet her. And so that's one of those movie magical moments, thank God I did. And I guess at the beginning, in the edit, we had to, because it was perhaps too slow for people. I like slow. I'm into European cinema. I like it, a slow burn. I like you having to sort of figure out what's going on, but I understand that studios don't like that, and producers get a bit gun shy of that. So we chopped around the opening a little bit, but pretty much it was to the page. Look, you also always have to market a film, and I understand it. And this probably has a certain audience thinking, oh, this is going to be, Green Street, Rise of the Footsoldier. And those are 2 movies that people know Craig and I from. It's not that film, that. And so
it's nearer to Nicholas Winding Refn.
I God bless you for saying it. Yes, so it's like I don't want to scare away the people that would be going on. I want to watch another, geezer belting. It's not that film. I hope there's an arty crowd that would be interested in seeing it. But also, I think there's something in that for the Green Street and the Footsoldier crowd too. If you sit down and watch it,
it's not just contemplatively staring at the mirror. It has got meat on the bone as well.
It is a bit,
but it has got meat on the bone. I mean, you don't mess around in some of the scenes. I mean, not this without the context. This is no spoiler, but the line, "Do you want to cut or do you want to break?" I mean, those kind of lines are brilliant, and the philosophy of Craig's character in the beginning when he's trying to give Steve, he's kind of in like it's an induction, but it's not really. But he can't do it. He can't help himself. And when he does the whole "everyone's a cunt what cunt do you want to be? Which was like the best way of saying nobody in here is going to be your mate and nobody wants to be your mate.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a society to have to spend years in. And almost like for a message out your film, like for anyone that thinks they could do it, that isn't, there's no reasoning to that kind of society. But obviously Craig's character, with his understanding of the world that he's in, and it's that survivor thing, isn't it? You know, he knows what he has to do to survive, and he's trying to say to Steve's character, yeah, that's what you need to do to survive. And if you don't wake up to that,
and like I said previously, you know, it's not him trying to be a father figure. You know, it's him going, look, this is a reality of the game you're in now. You know, and I love that you brought up that line. I mean, you know, again, I think it was a Guardian who said that in prison that there obviously isn't any light bulbs because I couldn't see anything. And I was like, well, you know, if there was the light bulb in a prison, they'd use it as a weapon. So you're obviously not understanding. And their other thing was they said, you know, the language and the word cunt's thrown around. And I was like, again, we're not shooting in a monastery and we're shooting in a London prison. That's sort of the vernacular. But also Steve's character, you know, Craig's character, Steve, he's a very well-read individual, but he's self-educated. So he's still from the streets, you know, even though he knows how, you know, perhaps, you know, read The Alchemist, I don't know, but he certainly got that street lion within him. And so, yeah, that line, it was interesting at the screening last night, that line elicited a laugh, which I loved because I was like, it's so true. It's like, you know, you got to decide what kind you want to be. And Marcus laughs at it like the audience does. And then Steve, straight away, I ain't a funny cunt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not pissing around here, mate. Like, you want to play ball? Here it is, you know. So I'm glad you picked that one out.
Well, look, congratulations on the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
And it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your time on the Britflicks podcast.
Thanks, pal.
Imagine football's favorite Sunday. Now imagine it without salsa. We know you'd never commit to that kind of party foul. Instead, add fresh craving salsa. Our premium small batch recipes burst with big flavors. That means your game day guests will dip their chips and tip their hats to you. Yes, you. With Fresh Cravings, every host is a hero. Find Fresh Craving salsa in the produce section or visit freshcravings.com for where to buy. Crave goodness.
Careers at Mayo Clinic are life-changing for employees and for our patients. The Center for Digital Health creates digital products and seamless patient experiences through simplicity, innovation, and the human touch. We are currently hiring in critical areas on our team, including product development, experience design, data and analytics, portfolio management, and more. Join us in the Center for Digital Health. Become part of Mayo Clinic's mission. We inspire hope and create new ways of delivering trusted healthcare solutions for patients around the world. Visit jobs.mayoclinic.org/CDH-jobs to find out more.